Ever feel like your life is just a pile of random pieces? Jobs you hated, skills you half-learned, painful memories you try not to think about, all tangled like Christmas decorations in a dusty box. What if nothing is random? You just haven't planted the tree yet. We're going to break down the dark side of goals. How childhood wounds quietly push you from below, how your secret dream pulls you from above, and how, if you don't choose your own direction, you end up hanging like a shiny ornament on somebody else's tree. A company, a family script, an ideology you never really chose. From ancient philosophers and religious traditions to Odysseus and Martin Eden, we'll trace one hidden path. The moment you stop steering your goal starts steering you. That you'll see exactly why your body sabotates fake goals, why small wins matter more than motivation, and how to build a goal system that you control instead of being controlled by it. Only when you keep your goal steadily in sight do you have a real chance of arriving where you truly need to be. Think about how we store Christmas tree decorations. The garlands and tinsel get tangled in bags, the glass balls sit in dusty boxes in a closet, and the ones without boxes fall out at the worst moment and shatter. The most awkward piece is always that fragile star for the top. But the moment we bring out the tree, everything suddenly makes sense. Each decoration finds its place, and the shining star settles perfectly at the very top. At last, every little thing begins to fulfill its main purpose, to delight and to astonish. Life works the same way. Music lessons, random courses, past jobs and skills, all of it can lie scattered like useless weight until a clear goal appears. The goal is the tree. Because of it, all your resources and knowledge, your contacts and abilities, gather together and begin to sound like a full orchestra, bringing joy to you and to the world around you. Most people have roughly the same set of decorations at home, yet every tree ends up unique. In the same way, it is the goal that makes the whole accumulation of your life experience visible, valuable, and distinct. But a goal is not just something you write down once. You need to know how to work with it and understand how it actually moves you. The ancient philosophers would say that the inner mechanism of a goal rests on two springs. The first spring is made of early hurts, childhood grievances, deprivations, unfulfilled desires, the blows of fate. They shape not only our character but also a fierce desire to rise above, to prove ourselves, to achieve, to take off from the ground. There is an old story from classical Athens about Demosthenes, a frail, mock boy with a weak voice. He began to train obsessively, reciting speeches with stones in his mouth, shouting against the roar of the sea, just to prove he was not worse than the admired orators of his city. Wounds turned into fuel. The second spring is the dream. It is the image of the life you long for, which is useful to savor, to imagine often and vividly, to feel in your hands as if its feathers were already brushing against your palms. The first spring pushes you up from the bottom, the second pulls you upward from above. Together, these two vectors of force add up and propel you forward. At the same time, setting and achieving a goal is not only a matter of emotions and dreams. It is a rational process that obeys fairly precise principles. Even modern management, echoing ancient wisdom about order and measure, uses the idea of management by objectives and recommends testing any goal against the SMART criteria. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bounded. As Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, wrote, "When a man does not know to which harbor he is sailing, no wind is favorable." Some ancient philosophers would add another quality to the SMART principle, the connectedness of a goal. When you build a tree of goals for different areas of life, the goals shouldn't stand alone. They need to be linked to one another. For the higher-level goals, you first ask, by what means can this actually be achieved? Then you look for the corresponding, more specific goal on the lower level that serves as that means. When your goals are structured this way, you begin to see them as a single, coherent system rather than scattered wishes. Only goals that are woven into such a system can truly be managed and steadily brought to life. As a ship needs a lighthouse, a human being needs a goal. For a captain, it is not enough to know navigation. He must also choose routes that matter personally to him. Just as a careful helmsman guides the ship forward, watching for hidden reefs and rocks, so anyone who cares about a virtuous life must carefully examine what to do and what to avoid, counting as truly useful only what aligns with higher, timeless laws, and cutting off deceitful thoughts from the soul. There is a crucial point. Our goals are charged with energy only when they are born from our own dream. Without that inner battery, a chosen goal annoys our logic, The brain and the whole body simply do not understand why they should fight for it. Deep satisfaction comes only from reaching a goal that is truly ours, not someone else's. Very often we sell our time and talents to serve someone else's goal. In exchange for money or other rewards, we quietly abandon our own. In that case, there is no real new year inside us. The lights are on, but they bring no joy. We arrive in a place where our childhood conflicts are not resolved and our old hurts are not healed. An inner voice shouts, "This is not mine," and many, unfortunately, try to silence that voice with alcohol or drugs. If we keep walking not toward our own dream, but toward goals imposed by society, authorities, glossy magazines, or parents, then the unconscious will look for ways to stop us. Wait, not there. You don't need to go that way. Stay here. That is what the body is trying to say through psychosomatic signals like constant colds or a twisted ankle by accident. For the organism, it is vital that the goal in front of us is truly our own. If you set out for a goal and have to stop to throw stones at every dog that barks at you, you will never reach your destination. Dostoevsky. It is pointless to release an arrow if you have not chosen a target. Sometimes we realize that everything we're doing is actually pulling us further away from our goal. Why does this happen? In physics, there is a well-known idea called the principle of least action. Put simply, when a change happens in nature, it happens in the way that requires the least possible action. This principle is used successfully in mechanics, optics, classical field theory, and even quantum physics. And it has a lot to do with real life. People also tend to choose the path that demands the least effort when it comes to change. But unlike the physical world, in social life this law has an unpleasant consequence. By always taking the path of least resistance, we quietly hand over control of our lives to other people, often without even realizing it. We choose this because it feels easier and lighter. Yet the more difficult and ambitious the goal, the longer and harder the road we must be willing to walk to reach it. A ship without a destination will never have a favorable wind. Abraham Maslow, the famous psychologist, once said, "Life is a process of constant choice." At every moment a person has a choice, either to retreat or to move toward a goal, to move into greater fear, anxiety, and self-protection, or to choose a goal and grow in spiritual strength. To choose growth over fear 10 times a day means to move 10 steps closer to self-realization. So if there is no goal, there is no real activity, no directed inner effort. And on the contrary, setting a goal is the very mechanism that launches and unfolds our entire program of action. Our goals also have a hierarchy. Some are small pilot goals, some secondary, some important, some urgent. Together they look like a fir tree. At the base is the satisfaction of basic survival needs, and at the top are the so-called ideal goals. Just as the lower branches of a fir tree grow first and make it stable, we first strive to satisfy our basic needs. As they grow stronger, we can build goals of a higher order above them. According to Maslow's theory of motivation, the higher the goal is on this tree, the higher the level of need it reflects. If you don't know where you are going, then it doesn't matter which path you choose. Dostoevsky. There is another force that influences our movement toward goals, the will of other people. We can influence the behavior of others by using pain and pleasure. But we can also control the inner world of another person through knowledge and beliefs, even if those beliefs are false. This is the dark side of our communication. Friendships are often maintained by many small deceptions and evasive answers that sometimes allow us to hide our true feelings. Through speech, through its emotional tone and content, we can direct the behavior of other people, pushing into action those who have no clear goals or inner direction of their own. That is why we must clearly understand, if we are not managing our own goals, then someone else is managing them for us. What actually stands in the way of our goals, and how do we overcome it? Most of the time, what stops us from bringing a goal to life is the mismatch between the size of our desires and the size of our current abilities. When we set huge global goals, they can become overwhelming, especially if we expect to reach them quickly and all at once. Psychologist Carl Weick, in his article Small Wins, writes that people are often disappointed because they are overloaded with complex and confusing tasks. He suggests reshaping and breaking these tasks down into simpler, clearer ones so we can get tangible results. Weick argues that small but visible wins on the way to something bigger trigger more activity, build more experience, and lead to more balanced decisions. Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer, in their book, The Progress Principle, support Weick's idea. In their view, Small but consistent achievements help a person develop a taste for victory and actually feel real progress. Lewis Howes, an American entrepreneur who writes for Forbes, also recommends starting with small, simple goals that don't even have to be directly tied to your main goal. In his words, these small but frequent goals help build the muscle of self-belief. Many experts agree that stable confidence and a healthy, grounded self-esteem are formed only through experience. If the goal we set is not truly clear to us, it becomes extremely difficult to reach the result we want. That's why psychologists urge us to really try to understand our goals. Every goal contains both standard and deeply personal elements. So we need to adapt the steps toward it as much as possible to ourselves and to our situation, and design intermediate goals along the way. Experts say that when a person takes charge of their own goals, they become genuinely motivated. Because if we don't manage our goals ourselves, circumstances and outside factors will inevitably interfere with the process and damage it. Psychologist Ray Williams argues that the key to achievement is flexibility. Reaching new goals always requires developing new abilities. We are the ones responsible for acquiring these new skills, and the path we choose will determine our next steps. Of course, no one can control every change in a situation or guarantee any result 100%. That's why constant reflection, flexibility, and the willingness to make new decisions help us stay on course. Most of the world's religions emphasize that mastering your passions and practicing self-control are the most important tools for steering your life in the direction you choose. In Buddhism, the foundation is the ending of suffering, the suffering created by our desires, our ignorance, and our egoism. Escaping this cycle of craving and rebirth and reaching nirvana is seen as the central goal of human life. But that goal can only be approached through strict self-discipline, meditation, spiritual and physical self-development, and conscious self-restraint. By pursuing great goals, a person discovers within themselves a great character, which turns them into a beacon for others. George Hegel. For Christians, the goal is the movement of the soul toward God. The tradition calls a person to examine their inner state. Do they act out of passion willingly and satisfy it? Or, though they do not wish to act according to it, are they still overcome by it? Do they act out of passion by force of habit, and then grieve and repent afterward? Do they make a reasonable effort to stop the passion? Or do they fight one passion with another, for example, keeping silent out of vanity, or to please people, or for some other merely human motive? Or have they begun to uproot the passion, and are they doing so wisely, acting in ways that are directly opposed to it? Each person is invited to understand where they truly are and what stage of the path they are on. Scripture underlines how important it is to shape your path consciously, governing yourself as you move toward meaning and your goals. Otherwise, the reins will be taken out of your hands. When an unclean spirit goes out of a person, it passes through waterless places seeking rest, but finds none. Then it says, "I will return to my house from which I came." And when it comes, it finds the house empty, swept, and put in order. Then it goes and brings with it 7 other spirits more evil than itself, and they enter and live there, and the last state of that person is worse than the first. Matthew chapter 12, 43-45. So it becomes vital to master the art of governing yourself and your aims. Souls that are not restrained by reason and not guided by a mind that calms, holds back, and directs their passions, that is, their sorrow and their pleasure, perish like irrational animals, because their reason is dragged along by their passions like a driver carried away by horses that no longer obey him. If you want to stand high, you must choose the uphill path. In Islam, earthly life is seen as only a test on the way to the next life. The life of this world is only play and amusement. The home of the hereafter is better for those who are mindful of God. Quran 6:32. The goal of a Muslim is to do everything in the name of Allah. Only in this way does a person fulfill their purpose and find the truth. Quran 51, 56-58. A person grows in proportion to the size of their goals. Friedrich Schiller. The goal that Kabbalah declares is to unite with the Almighty and become His partner in the work of creation and in fulfilling the very purpose of creation, to transform the world into a dwelling place for the infinite divine light and His essence. When a person devotes themselves to the study of the Torah and its wisdom, their inner character is refined because they draw closer to the Almighty. The teachings of Kabbalah are directed toward understanding the divine so that we can try to bring our daily lives closer to His qualities. The more a person studies Kabbalah in the right way, the closer they come to the Almighty. Every trait of their character and all their inner faculties begin to acquire a divine, spiritual radiance. When a Jewish soul connects with this wisdom and this understanding, the student's entire life changes, from the awareness of the mind to the feelings of the heart, and all the way to their outward behavior, strengthening a person's ethical and moral foundations, drawing them nearer to the absolute, and even the idea, utopian as it may be, born of the Enlightenment, of correcting people's morals. All of this was the goal of great thinkers and writers throughout history. What greatness of design! This was the yardstick by which Alexander Pushkin judged the purpose and the worth of every great literary work, from Dante and Shakespeare to Milton. When a goal becomes truly personal and of highest priority for someone, it makes them proactive and significant, and releases enormous reserves of inner energy. A person armed with a conscious, chosen goal will not allow others to manipulate them. A powerful example of unwavering commitment to a goal is the image of Odysseus, the hero of the ancient Greek myths. For 10 long years the famed warrior journeyed back to his native Ithaca after the victory over Troy, but in the end, he reached his destination. The myth of Odysseus clearly shows how strongly the achievement of our plans depends on whether circumstances favor us, or whether, on the contrary, the actions of others constantly push us away from what we have set out to do, even when we ourselves are doing everything in our power. Difficulties increase the closer we come to our goal. But let each person walk their path like the stars, calmly, unhurriedly, yet ceaselessly striving toward the chosen aim. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. When Odysseus found himself on the island of Aeolus, the king of the winds gave him a leather bag into which he had bound the winds. But as soon as Odysseus fell asleep, his crew loosened the bag, and the winds burst out, carrying the ship far away from Ithaca, which had already appeared on the horizon. That afternoon's sleep cost Odysseus dearly. For a brief moment, he had handed over leadership into other hands, and he paid a harsh price for it. It was a lesson. In striving toward a great goal, you cannot rely blindly even on your most devoted friends. The myth of Odysseus shows how powerful our striving toward a true goal can be. For 7 long years Odysseus was forced to live on the island of the nymph Calypso. He had almost lost hope of returning to Ithaca. Calypso promised him eternal youth and immortality, but Odysseus could not forget Ithaca, his wife, or his son, and he was not tempted by her promises. At last the gods forgave him and sent Hermes to order Calypso to let Odysseus go. When a goal is truly important, a person is capable of going through fire, water, and every possible trial on the way to it. When the will is firm, the goal can always be reached. But the desire to have total control over our goals can take everything else away from us, leaving us alone with an obsessive idea. This is exactly what happens to the main character of Jack London's novel Martin Eden. The novel is largely autobiographical. The protagonist, like Jack London himself, comes from a family of sailors and achieves great success in literature solely through his own willpower and the way he sets himself a clearly defined goal. Poor sailor Martin dreams so intensely of becoming a writer that he spares no effort on the path to his goal. He does in fact achieve what he planned. He makes his way from the very bottom of society, from an ignorant sailor to a popular writer and wealthy intellectual. But by that time he has lost love, friends, his interest in literature, and even his interest in life. What becomes central for him is no longer the goal itself, but his control over it. This turns the hero of the novel into an unbreakable, but deeply unhappy and lonely person. Hope alone will not get you to your goal. For all our individualism and our drive toward our own goals, we are still social beings. And if each of us were to pursue only personal dreams, there would be no shared movement at all. We survive in this world and become happy only together, within the macrosystem of society, the state, and within microsystems such as family or a circle of friends. For these microsystems, nature has created a remarkable way of combining personal goals. People form families because both partners want closeness and children, support and sincerity, a safe home and care. People form groups in order to achieve more together, to learn faster, to earn more. To reach results that matter to each of us, we consciously agree to limit ourselves in something less important, living by the principle that freedom is conscious necessity. A similar tool for creating shared goals and shaping images of the desired future also exists for the macrosystem. This tool is ideology. Ideology creates a magnetic field in which each person, moving toward their own personal dream, still takes at least a step a day in the direction needed by the whole people. It is a great stroke of luck when our personal goals coincide with the goals of the systems whose orbits we inhabit. But it takes great skill not to lose sight of your own goal, not to hand it over into someone else's hands, and to keep moving toward it, even when the path is winding.